Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching Perspective with your host Kriti Mishra. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced significant income tax cuts for the middle class and unveiled a blueprint for next generation reforms for Viksit Bharat as she treaded a fine line between fiscal prudence and providing a thrust to growth. The budget lays a strong foundation to increase savings and make citizens partners in development. This budget reflects a commitment to building a technologically advanced and inclusive economy. And for deeper insights, I'm joined by two very special guests. Joining us through virtual platform, Ms. Nivruti, CEO, Invest India, and also joining us, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, DG, CII. Welcome to Sansad TV, both of you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Banerjee, let me begin the program with you. It is said that the budget is a force multiplier that will boost consumption, investment and growth. Your opening thoughts on this year's budget?
See, I think the budget is, of course, gives directions to all the 3 pointers that you mentioned. Consumption was an important area that we have been working on, we have been talking about, and we see the amount of consumption demand facilitation in the budget, which is going to be just excellent to serve and also bring in the relief. Today, the middle class and others, the basket of expenditure was highly skewed with issues of healthcare, with issues of the food prices, etc. And even if you look at education, so this was a phenomenal relief to, of course, boost domestic savings, plus also help them navigate through many of the challenges that we have seen post-COVID. And that and also what's critical and important to see is this consumption demand would not only just spur economy, but it also leads to certain pull in terms of the investment demand, where the private sector would crowd in. Number two, one of the things that one has seen in the budget repeated oft many times during the speech of the Honorable Finance Minister was the usage of the word trust. That is the type of space that was being given to industry. We have seen the type of reform, the announcements that one would see going along in terms of keeping to the reform space the government has set. That's a very, very critical point, which will again drive growth. And we would obviously look forward to seeing many such happening. The third and my last point on that would be the opportunities towards private sector to invest through the PPP models, which was suggested, are areas where we can create projects which would be a virtuous cycle in creating both investment demand and seeing how the private sector gets an opportunity, which leads to employment, which leads to wages upliftment and involvement of more people in the labor workforce. So all of this are very, very critical factors coming out both from the point of view of growth and a very strong economy.
Absolutely. So there will be a multiplier effect of this virtuous cycle. Of course, we'll get to see that in medium term, in short term and in long term as well. But Ms. Rai, the policy approach of boosting investment through deregulation as signalled in the budget, that was also mentioned in the economic survey as well, that is likely to be positive for the investment outlook, which is an important factor for India's medium term and long term growth potential. Your opening thoughts on the budget, ma'am?
So the way I like to read this budget, especially 2025 budget, is what I call an acceleration budget. अभी तक जितने भी हम बजट्स देख रहे थे, they were driving velocity. अगर आप हमारे पिछले 25 साल को देखें, तो ये मेरा ऐसा वो रेस का हिस्सा है जो लास्ट माइल है. इसमें what we are doing is we are driving acceleration. तो उसी के लिए आपने देखा multiple areas में we are driving change. Like you said, deregulation. Our investors are looking for simplified regulations. Our investors are looking for infrastructure. So we have tremendous amount of investment. I'm very happy to see research, development and innovation. Not only like chasing technology, we'll be building technology, deep tech, fund of funds, 100% FDI into insurance, looking at regional connectivities, 120 more cities connected with Udan, focus on MSME and startups. And very importantly, I love the fact that our population will have more consumption money. एंड मेरा ये बिलीव है कि कंजम्पशन will drive production, which will leverage capital, which will draw more capital and create more jobs. उल्टा नहीं है कि jobs create करिए फिर consumption बढ़ाइए. Consumption बढ़ने से हमारे प्रोडक्शन बढ़ेगा एंड इस तरह से jobs increase होगा, which will increase consumption. That will be the wonderful virtuous cycle. So many of these things are very investment friendly. Or CB and I were talking how we have decided to do, and the way we are looking at budget is look at budget as a trend. एक साल का बजट सफिशिएंट नहीं है, तो जो हमने देखा 2025 में जो हमारी सरकार ने हमें दिखाया है वो ये है कि अगर आप साल पे देखें तो जो एलोकेशन हमारा बढ़ा है वो है रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी में, वो है एजुकेशन में, वो है विमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट में, R&D में, एंड देन इन एडिशन ये सिग्निफिकेंट, आई लाइक टू से एक्सपोनेंशियल ग्रोथ हुई है इनकी, द अमाउंट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट दैट हैज गॉन एज कंपेयर टू द GDP विच हैज ग्रोन 10x ओवर द लास्ट 25 years. तो इसकी जो ग्रोथ है वो मोर देन व्हाट द GDP हैज ट्रेडिशनल ग्रोन, जो हमारी इन्वेस्टमेंट है. एंड और भी देखें तो एजुकेशन, एग्रीकल्चर, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और सारे एरियाज हैं. आई एम हैप्पी टू टेल यू दीज आर द एरियाज विच आर ड्राइविंग ease of investment but also bringing investment. So energy हमारे लिए बहुत important है, and I'm very happy to see exponential investment over the last 25 years into this sector.
Well, absolutely, ma'am, and you made a very legit point saying that more disposable income, more aggregate demand, more consumption, more savings, and of course more investment that will lead to economic growth. But Mr. Banerjee, we live in a globalized era. Look at the unprecedented times that we're facing. There's uncertainty, there's geopolitical concern, there are conflicts in different parts of the world, imminent trade war as well. Of course, in this era, no country can be insulated from all these external factors. How much do they worry you?
So, obviously, global uncertainties, and we are living in a world of, in an era of global uncertainties. But amidst all of these global uncertainties, I see certain important growth drivers in India. First, of course, I see the fundamentals of Indian economy, which has been strengthened with a vision, which Nivruti talked about, a vision over the last few years. We have seen a long-term sort of focus on it. Second, if you really look at the central bank, the RBI's decision to initiate that rate easing cycle, nearly 5 years after, and by lowering the repo rate by 25 basis points, that's a very, very important impetus in providing domestic demand drivers. So it was holding us back. You talk about private investment, that was a big point. But importantly, it is also talked about easing of liquidity, gradually in the economy, which is also extremely critical. The second is, if you look at rural India, again, it has witnessed a very strong growth, and rural demand has actually, if I can say, bounced pretty much with normal monsoons, healthy kharif, and all of that. And going forward, I would think that we can expect that rural demand, which comprises 60% of our total private sector consumption, to remain very strong, with both Rabi and the kharif doing well. And the third is the private investment cycle, of which Nivruti talked about, which is showing phenomenal signs of recovery. There are sectors, again, which she talked about, renewable energy to electronics to chemicals. And as per our study of over almost about 44,000 odd companies, we are seeing a strong investment push, which is going from different types of sectors. And my fourth is the headline inflation. So after moving above the upper tolerance level band in October, we have seen a sequential moderation in November and December. So looking ahead, the arrival and the crops that I talked about, the kharif crops, the healthy progress of the Rabi, all of that, we would see a strong sort of influence coming from there. And my last point is on the external front. And that's again, services exports, robust it has been, and we have been able to cushion that against all global headwinds. And we are seeing India to be a very impressive and a very strong destination for foreign investment. And I see the strong, I see that India to be in a position to attract foreign capital and foreign direct investments pretty strongly in the months and years to come.
Well, absolutely, point well taken. But you mentioned a very important point about RBI's New Year gift to the industry, to the country. Ms. Rai, this is a bonanza, a budget that focuses on consumption and investment and capex. On the other hand, you have RBI's monetary policy providing liquidity to the private sector. How do you see the impact of two major decisions on the investment cycle in India?
I'm seeing a lot of interest from many investors. US investors, Germany, Japan, Korea. People are very excited about looking at the opportunities that India offers. And I'll tell you, the way I'm looking at investment and the opportunity is we have an amazing field of opportunity where India has a chance to win. We just have to make sure we have the right fielders placed everywhere. Whatever is our shortcoming, we cover it, we work it to bring it. I think that's the lay that I'm trying to work on. Power is important. What do we do in terms of power? Our budget is showing amazing investment. Nuclear, small nuclear reactor. किसके पास समय 6 साल का फुल न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर बनाने का, तो हमें एक्सेलरेशन करके 1 साल का न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर बनाना है. सो एनी deregulation, any support that RBI is offering, all of that is very welcome. And when people ask me, एक साल में फर्क दिखाइए, this is not a 1 year return. Therefore, I'm saying, please don't look at FDI for 1 year. Please don't look at a budget for 1 year. We have to look at the trend and where we are going. And I therefore like to say that this year's budget is one where our finance minister has really worked on how to drive acceleration to India's growth, and let us, people like us, work to make our GDP double by 2030. That's a big audacious goal, but this is an environment that our government has created to let us hit the ball out of the park.
Ma'am, I'd like to stick to deregulation. You mentioned about ease of doing business in India. Our rankings have substantially improved. In fact, the economic survey also talks about ease of doing 2.0. What would that mean for the industry, for the private sector, in fact, for the foreign players as well, ease of doing business 2.0 in India?
Is that for me or?
That's right, Ms. Rai. That's right.
Okay. Oh my gosh, ease of doing business is such a motherhood and apple pie statement. So what we have started working with our investors is, tell us what exactly you want. And I'm happy to tell you that under the Department of Commerce, DPIT, we run a program we call fast track mechanism. So we enable different countries to come and tell us what is exactly you want. And we have been resolving the issues through our ministry, through across the departments. So people are loving the fact that government is accessible, government is listening. And yes, some ease of doing business challenges, the next level details need improvement, but they can give input to us. And we are working a strategy which is a win-win for the company as well as for us. So I'm really happy about the strategies that we are laying from our finance versus our commerce and all of the other departments to draw the investors, because we are an opportunity land. And I can tell you, last, I would say, year and a half, we probably have 2,000 investors that either have landed or we are meeting with. Every single one of them believes in India. Many of them have taken the leap. Many of them are on the fence, and we are working with each one of them to make sure that we help them land, into India.
Mr. Banerjee, win-win situation for both the industry and the government and the country as a whole. Ease of doing business, translate that vision translating into action.
You see, of course, if you really look at the budget also, and if you really look at the overall scenario, one of the things that the budget has talked about is, the very important, and even the economic survey on the focus on deregulation. That's a tremendous focus one sees on rationalizing the regulatory process to facilitate the private investment. And the budget has started the process of that high-level committee on regulatory reforms. The second point I wanted to also focus on, which will actually going forward we need to see, is where does the investment come? The investment comes into the states of India, right?
Yes.
So that the states of India, the handholding of the states of India to create templates of the best practices, and really we are seeing some very good level of competition between the states to see how the regulatory frameworks in the states or ease of doing business, so to say, is really focused upon. The third is the cost of finance. That's coming down, and that is going to be key for competitive rates along with it to encourage private investments and one of the things which has started off are the financial sector reforms, and that also facilitates a lot of private sector coming in. So I want to also talk about one more important area which the government has actually initiated. Now we are seeing private sector and the government working together on it. Is how do we get our labor, the productivity of labor and labor sort of prepared for the future of the jobs that would really emerge in a country which is becoming, moving towards a Viksit Bharat. And last, and the factor market reforms, that's land, labor, power. I think the government has done a phenomenal job in an area like GST. So with a coordinated approach with the states moving ahead on these type of reforms, we see a twin engine sort of growth in manufacturing and the services sector.
Mr. Banerjee, very important point that you mentioned about labor. Now, the government has a lot of focus on AI as well. Now, labor in the era of AI, crisis or catalyst? How do we navigate this labyrinth?
So I don't see we for the last few decades, if you've seen, we have every time whenever new technologies have come, we have thought that it would displace labor, etc. But yes, of course, with prudent policies and understanding and an ecosystem of government-led sort of stakeholder consultation, multi-stakeholder consultation. Here, industry is only a part of it, but multi-stakeholder consultation on how do we look at the advantages of, or rather the opportunities that AI would provide for a country like India, and India giving leadership, and India has given leadership in many of the tech areas in the recent past, which has benefited the entire of our population, digitalization, say for instance, digitization. So similarly, I think AI, I would look at it as a boon and as an opportunity, and I'm sure we will see gradual transformation of companies towards a digital transformation of companies, not just the big companies, but even the small and the supply chain to be competitive, not just in India, but with the rest of the world. I see it as a strong opportunity coming forward if we are able to crack it with proper interface and working together. Nivruti knows the type of initiatives that are being taken by the government in terms of interfacing with different stakeholders.
Ms. Rai, who knows technology better than you? Your take on AI and its impact on Indian economy?
Oh, I am a firm believer of AI, and I believe that it'll create more jobs rather than saying take jobs. I'll tell you, I just want to repeat to what CB said. From Javon's paradox to the Luddites to perhaps the Tiananmen Square, and also looking at what people are saying on AI. People have generally, historically opposed technology and new technology because there's a lot of unknown. But what AI offers, the opportunity cost, is not known to people. The quality of life, the longevity of life, the connectivity, it will create happiness, it will create connectivity, it will create quality of life. And I truly believe India will play a big part. We may have been a little slow, and you are seeing a deep seek, but you will see many seeks coming out of India in pharma, in climate, in healthcare, in monitoring traffic. anything you can imagine. I think India will be coming up with many. We are a land of software, guys. We are a land of analytics. We are a land of needs. All we need to do is partner and leverage these open source platforms. Partner for capital, partner, across countries with common vision.
But Mr. Banerjee, the government also aims to reduce the fiscal deficit to 4.4% of GDP, with capital expenditure pegged at approximately 11.21 lakh crore. Despite all the relief measures, the government continues to walk on the fiscal prudence path. How do you look at that, sir?
You know what? I would think that one of the biggest, strengths of the Indian economy, for which it has gained so much of global attention, is the way we have stuck to our fiscal prudence. Our fiscal deficit being budgeted much lower than 4.4% of the GDP, and the revised from the revised 4.8%. These are messages to the rest of the world that we are actually fiscal prudent, we have fiscal responsibility, and lower borrowing. That really means stable interest rates benefiting households as well as businesses. And this type of fiscal consolidation that offers the RBI the leg room to cut interest rates and all of that. So very, very, very critically, what government has done is to adhere to this fiscal consolidation without any sharp reduction in capital expenditure.
Yes.
Over the years, it has done the heavy lifting on capital expenditure, and even in this budget, if you see, the state support for capex spending has been maintained at about 1.5 lakh crores, right? Which will actually help, as I mentioned earlier, the states to partake in the India's capex story. So we see a very strong movement on that front. And my last point on that is the movement towards the debt to GDP as the fiscal anchor from FY27. That's a very, very critical and a prudent move, because that improves India's sovereign debt rating and brings down, again, the real interest rates, among other benefits. So this is something excellent, which makes our economy even stronger.
Well, absolutely. And let me also take that point to Ms. Rai. Ms. Rai, the impact of this fiscal prudence and fiscal consolidation path of the government on the foreign investors.
See, we have a few levers that, as a finance department, we have, and some of the areas where you see a lot of investment, whether it is the fund of funds or whether it's a push towards MSME, whether it is 100% FDI for insurance, you'll see there are many things that our finance minister and our government has played, and all of these levers. We have, in some we are pulling some, we are giving some. What we are giving to our investors is a positive news that the government is out there. The kickstart budget is here. What we want is to add to the private, capex into our country and see the growth that we are working towards. So all in all, these are all areas which our government is showing and creating confidence in the minds of the investors, who are saying, okay, here is what the country is trying to do, investing in itself. Here is the private investment within the country itself, and welcoming all of the foreign investments. So I'm really excited about all of the changes, and debt and the fiscal budget, and these to me are levers. We can exercise on them anytime. We are being, like CB says, we are being very prudent, and offering ways to accelerate our economy.
Mr. Banerjee, you have this perfect amalgamation. There's liquidity, there's aggregate demand. Now, of course, the ball is in your court to boost investment. I mean, the private investment by the private sector.
Yeah, of course. The private sector, as I mentioned in the beginning, the private sector has a strong role to play in seeing to it how we can create a virtuous cycle which will help the economy pick up. There are many if you look at what has also happened, one of the things I talked about the usage of the word trust, but then really looking at the spirit of it, we are looking forward to the proposed Jan Viswas bill, which is the
Yes.
Jan Viswas Bill 2.0, that will itself decriminalize more than 100 provision in various laws. So all of these are extremely critical for us to say, which will help the private sector really plunge in the opportunities that today India is providing through the digital framework that it is creating around the country. It helps the type of logistics network which is being provided, which makes the cost of doing business in India, reaching from the factory door to the port, all of this being so made so simpler because of the type of network that exists in India. And it's still the demand, if you look at 1.4 billion people. So all of them are very critical. And another, I want to end by talking about the impetus which has been given even to the small and the mid-sized companies, which have a huge role to play when we talk about the investment chain and how to make our larger companies stronger. So when we see that the credit, it's things like the credit guarantee cover, which has been enhanced from 5 crores to 10 crores for our micro enterprise, that's enough. That's phenomenal to give a thrust. So I see the impetus given even for small companies to participate, to create jobs for youth, and also which is in line with the theme of the eco survey, and the increase in turnover being doubled, investment limits were being made 2.5x for MSMEs. All of these are sort of really impetus to grow and to invest.
Absolutely, but time for closing comments from both our panelists. Mr. Banerjee, India aims to become a developed nation, Viksit Bharat, by 2047. To achieve this, we need to grow at 8%. Your suggestions for achieving this growth?
One of the things which even when we saw the RBI monetary policy announcement which came out was that India has the potential to grow higher, and I think that's something that I also strongly believe in. We have now created a ground to work on 8% plus growth. We also have invested in human capital. The entire focus which has remained on health, on education. These have been very, and the social sector part of CapEx spend, which is not much talked about, is a very serious intervention which has been done. I see therefore that leading to a very strong participation of labor, or if I can say people, to upgrade the living of our people towards Viksit Bharat. So it's just not about companies and industries, but a sustainable sort of a growth through various interventions and human capital, which will see us moving towards Viksit Bharat by 2047.
Can't second you more on that one, sir. Mishra, your closing thoughts on making India Viksit Bharat by 2047 with sustainable growth?
My 2 cents is, what we are doing is looking at what are those areas of investment that India should lead and drive and fit into the needs of the world. So we are carefully looking at where is the demand, who's going to buy the product, and carefully curating the investments in those areas. I like to call them my focus sectors, because we are offering not only investment opportunities because there's a global demand, but we have evaluated to see that those are the sectors which are giving returns of 14 to 18%. So when we share these kind of information to our investors, they're very gung-ho about it, because we are opening up to say that here are our challenges, here are the opportunities, here when you invest, this is the need I'm fulfilling, and this is the return you're going to get. So we are basically not just looking at solving India's problem, but we are looking at solving many other companies, countries' problems, and therefore, collaboratively driving India growth and world growth.
Mr. Banerjee is nodding vociferously on that collaboration. But thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us, Ms. Rai and Mr. Banerjee. Pleasure to have you on Sansad TV.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye for now from my side.
more programs of Sansad TV. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.